Hello and welcome back, everyone. Thanks for tuning into our Brood Minds podcast. Today we have our special guest, Yilda Carpella. She's a good friend of mine. We go way back high school. And I'm super excited to get to interview Yilda. And, I know her story, but, her story is very inspiring. And I wanted to bring her on the podcast so she can inspire the younger generation. And yeah, I'm really excited to do this today. Welcome, Yilda.
Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it. Well, where to start? As you guys know, my name is Yilda. I'm raised in Santa Maria. I was born in Oaxaca, Mexico, and I have 5 other siblings. And I moved to the United States when I turned 8 years old. And since then, it's just been a struggle with education, especially that language barrier. But I made it, and now I'm pursuing a higher education, and I'm just so proud of myself for all the accomplishments. And so in elementary school, I went to Alvin School. A lot of you may be familiar with that school. And then I went to Bessler. And then high school, I went to Santa Maria High, where I met you. Yes. And we did soccer together. After high school, I went to UC Davis and majored in biochemistry and molecular biology.
That's crazy. That just sounds crazy.
Yeah. And
real quick, I wanted to ask, so you had 5 siblings?
Yes, 5
so
siblings.
Of those 5, were you like in the middle?
I was
older?
The baby.
You were the baby.
The last one, yeah. So my older siblings didn't get to go to school. My 2 older sisters just went to 3rd grade and then stopped because they had to help my parents financially. So they started working at a very young age. And then my oldest brother, he went to high school, but then after that he stopped because he had to work to support the younger ones. So out of all of us, I was the only one to go to college and pursue a higher education. And I owe it to my older siblings because they had to sacrifice, their schooling for mine. And to this day, I'm so grateful for them. Otherwise, I don't think I would be here today, But yeah.
That's honestly super amazing. That's, I feel like we all have that one family member that has to sacrifice everything for the younger ones to, be successful or to pursue their dreams. And, I'm happy that you had that support and that you acknowledge that your family, is like the main reason and the main people that assisted you in pursuing your dreams.
Yeah, it's true. And same with my parents. They didn't really get to go to school. I believe my mom and dad stopped at 1st or 2nd grade. And for the same reason. They had so many siblings and they were one of the oldest ones that they had to sacrifice their education to help out their parents and provide for the younger ones. So, I feel like it's been tough in that sense because my parents don't understand the education system and my older siblings don't either, So here I am, the first one in the family trying to just further our education, better ourselves. And it's been challenging, but, you just have to push through.
Yeah, and break that generational curse or, just break those chains and,
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely, because it took me 10 years to graduate. No, 13 years to graduate, like from the first time I stepped into college to when I'm going to graduate with my master's.
Yeah.
That whole process is 13 years.
Yeah.
And when you tell like my parents who also didn't get to go to college, that's like, why aren't you a doctor yet?
Yeah.
Because they in their mind, when they see like TV shows or when they see things, it's like, oh, a doctor takes 13 years, like a full education. But it's not that way for everyone.
Right.
So like we all have our own paths that we take.
Yeah.
Where we start in our college, we take some time off. And like, no, this took me that long to get my degree, and my degree is in engineering. So,
Yeah.
but everyone is different, and everyone has their own journey to get there.
Yeah, yeah, it's true. Yeah, I mean, after high school, I went to UC Davis and did 5 years. Typically, it's like a 4-year program, but it took me 5 years because I was struggling in my classes, and that's because I think I went into UC Davis very immature. I did not know how to study. I did not have time management, and I feel like if I had someone who, took their time and taught me about how to do all of those, I think I would have done so much better in school. For the first 2 years, I got C's in my classes because I didn't know how to study, and it was my first time being on my own without my parents. So I had all this time, just to hang out with my friends. And I kind of put like studying on the side, and I didn't really understand how much it would hurt me in the future. Now looking back, I'm like, man, I wish I would have done better. I wish I could have focused better. But it's because they don't teach you these things. You just have to like find it out on your own. Unless if you have someone there who's constantly teaching you what to do, how you should study. But as a first generation student, we don't have that. Yeah. We don't have parents who went to college or siblings, who can help you with that. Mm-hmm. So it was a lot of trial and error, but it took me 5 years. And towards the end of my last 2 years, I did so much better because I knew how to study. I knew what it took to concentrate, and all of that really helped me in my classes. And I started getting B's and A's, and these are upper division science classes. So it's a lot of work, and it's more challenging stuff. And I did so much better in them because, all that distraction was gone. I had my priorities straight. Mm-hmm. And I think that's when I realized, we need more people to tell us that you don't have to go to a 4-year straight out of high school. You can go to community college because there you can establish like a good study habits, and you can bring that to a 4-year and you'll do so much better. Mm-hmm. And, and it's okay to go to community college. Go there for 2 years, learn how to study, learn how to focus, really commit yourself to your studying. And once you go to a 4-year, you're going to do so much better.
Yes.
And because, oh my gosh, when I was there the first 2 years, I was taking like 17 units. Yes, I was taking calculus, science.
UC Davis is a quarter system, right?
Yeah, it's a quarter system.
Oh my gosh.
I was drowning. I know. Nobody told me. Nobody told me, hey.
Your counselor, like when you signed up for classes, she just like, okay, 17 units?
Yeah. They have like a schedule for you to graduate like 4 years. Uh-huh. And some of them require that you take extra classes so you can meet that 4-year timeline. And I did. And oh my gosh, I passed them all, but with C's. I know. And I was like, why didn't someone tell me about this? And I think this was my second quarter as a freshman. And it was bad.
Yeah, I think it's such a shock when you go into like a university, especially for like first generation that doesn't have as much information out there. Mm-hmm. And one of the things I find like difficult, or would have found difficult if I were to go to like straight from high school to 4 years, is like, how do you know what you want to do?
Exactly.
Because I spent my time at community college, like I think I took every science class possible. Oh, I took every biology, every chemistry, every math, every engineering,
that's what
computer science. Yeah. And it took me just forever to find something that I liked.
Yeah.
And I feel like that would be such a burden or such a pressure as someone going into a 4-year, saying
16, 17-year-old going into a 4-year.
Exactly. And then like, oh, you need to pick the major for the rest of your life.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's intense.
Right. And when you're applying from high school to university, you have to choose a major then. Mm-hmm. So you have no idea what these majors are. I know I wanted to do something science, and all I saw there was like science related was like biochemistry. And I was like, okay, let's do biochemistry.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And I think it would be nice if in high school someone came to talk to you and they had like different people representing majors, mm-hmm. Just telling you a little bit more about what they're doing, what they're studying. I think that could have helped.
Yeah, and I feel like our community lacks a lot of that.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you compare yourself to other students, you know, in the same major, they came from these nice high schools that offered Calc 2, Calc 3. You know, when I was in college, I met someone that was, I think she was in her sophomore year.
Mm.
She had finished all her math in high school. That's why she was so like advanced in like
Wow.
in like her path
Yeah.
in graduating.
Yeah.
And then you compare someone, say, from here.
Yeah.
There's no way you can do calculus 4 or you know,
No.
in high school. And like
Mm-mm.
the lack of resources are you know, pretty messed up, I think. So
Yeah.
that's definitely something we have as a disadvantage.
Yeah.
You know, but
That's true.
we need to change that. We need to be able to, you know, those that made it help our community.
To like inform them, because yeah, I think it's like, oh, what do you want to do? Engineer. But there's like, once you get into college, you're like, which type of engineering?
Right.
There's so much.
Mm-hmm.
And then even from like the biology side, it's like, oh, I want to go into biology. That's even bigger. There's even more fields.
Right.
And it's like that seems, it was pretty tough to be able to pick something that you want to do.
Yeah.
So like, was that your major going into it? Like that's what you decided and declared? And then did you end up like, oh, this was a good choice? Or was there some like, maybe I should do some other like branch of biology?
Because I knew there was like so many courses involving like biology within that degree, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to stick to it and see all of these courses that I'm taking, see if I like one of them. If I like one of them, then I might expand on that one. And I got to learn about just biology, how our body works, you know, how all the little molecules in our bodies. And that was awesome. And I did have a counselor telling me, you know, hey, you may consider switching majors because you're not doing so well. And I don't know, I think that really upset me. I was like, you think I can't do this because my grades are so poor? That's not because I can't. It's just because I don't know how to study. You know, it was my first 2 years. I don't know how to study. I'm just building this. So I think that made me stick to it. And I was like, you know what? I could do this. It's a hard major, but if I put myself into it, I can. And since then, I started to do better. And I started liking it more and more. So I stick to it. And I think that's one of the reasons why I'm really looking into doing more like lab work now. Mm-hmm. So I'm currently applying to a clinical laboratory scientist program. And what we do is pretty much work with the pathologists at like hospitals or to diagnose a patient. But we do more like the lab work. We look at the cells, try to help the provider diagnose a patient. You know, they make us run labs to diagnose the patients. And I think that's why it came from biochemistry, you know, just learning all about the cells. And then after I graduated, I went to work at a pathology lab for 3 years. And I got to see this different side of healthcare that I had no idea existed. When I thought about healthcare, it was always patient care, you know, patient interaction. But then there's pathology. How do you diagnose a patient? You know, it takes a whole team of lab techs who do all the lab work for a pathologist to diagnose, you know, what's wrong with the patient. And then that's when I did not know that existed. And after working there, I was like, wow, I think this is so cool. I may want to do this. Mm-hmm. So I worked there for 3 years, and then I moved on to patient care because I still wasn't sure. And I was like, well, you know, I haven't really done a lot of patient interaction. Maybe I should scribe for a little bit and see what it's like. Mm-hmm. And now I'm a scribe at a spine and orthopedic center, and we have a lot of patient interaction. But we see so many patients, like 30 patients a day per provider. And
oh man, that's
a lot.
That's a lot of interaction.
Yeah, with 30 different patients.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm still trying to figure out if I want to do more patient interaction. But from my experience as a scribe, I don't think I really want to do that anymore, just because it's really exhausting. And you're seeing a lot of patients and you're not giving them enough time, I think.
I do have a question.
Mm-hmm.
How do you keep your emotions separate? Like in terms of like when you have to give bad news or like, because I don't know, on TV I see a lot of doctors that like, you know, like keep a really serious face and you know, like Grey's Anatomy.
Yeah.
They like, so they say like, oh, don't don't be emotional or don't show emotions when you give like a bad news or you know, how do you cope with that, or how do you deal with that?
So with us, we see a lot of like pain management, a lot of people with pain. So it's not from our practice, you know, it's not like they're coming like, oh, I am having a lot of pain and crying. It's mostly like families. I guess sometimes it's just patients just want to talk to someone. So they share with us like family experiences. My husband died, you know, my daughter died. And that's really emotional, especially because I have a son and I put myself into their shoes and I'm like, oh gosh, that really hits. And they start crying. And I mean, I just go and just hug them. Oh, I do. I get emotional too. And I'm like, you know what? It's fine. We're all humans. You know, I get, you know, it's like, I don't understand your pain, but I do have a son and it would hurt me so much. So I do get personal with them. Sometimes I like hug them, you know, I try to just listen to them, but it gets to you sometimes, even though you don't want it to, or sometimes I'm like, you know, I'm sorry. Let me step out. I'll be right back in. You know, but sometimes it's just emotions, feelings, and it gets to me sometimes. Yeah. But yeah.
So what makes you feel passionate about this field you're in, or what about it is it that you
the most rewarding part of it?
The most rewarding part of it, of like the patient care, or wanting to
continue pursuing the medical field, or the healthcare?
I guess I don't know. I just really, I guess, just liking what I did at the lab. You know, I really just liked really doing the lab work right, and then giving the information to the doctor, and they made a diagnosis. You know, I think just doing all of that, it made me really want to go further with this career. So it's just being able to assist the doctor and helping them diagnose, because someone's waiting on those lab results. Someone's waiting to see what's going on with them. And even though I'm not seeing the patient directly, I know I'm making a difference, because I you know, I was in their shoes. You know, we wanted results immediately to see what's going on with the family member. And I think having that perspective really makes me want to do this even more. So I'm really hoping I can get into this program, the CLS program, and then work directly with a pathologist, because I eventually want to be a pathologist, you know, and right now I'm just wanting to explore my options. So I did lab work. I wanted to do patient care. I went to patient care and I'm like, you know what, maybe this isn't what I want. So now I'm going back to lab work and having like a higher position, working closer to a pathologist to see if this is what I really want. And I'm just so grateful to be in this situation, because I'm exploring my options now. Especially if we want to go to med school, it's like you can go to med school and then figure out what you want to do there. But I feel like you have very little time to explore what you want to do when you're in med school. So you're always studying, you're going to rotations. And I think that's why it's a good thing right now, because I'm exploring my options before I go to med school, because then I have an idea of what I want to do, you know?
So you mentioned like you want to try trying different areas, working directly with the patients. This is interesting because for me at least, because you're working on like more of the, I guess, human side of like STEM. And I'm coming from the engineering side, so it's very disconnected from people. Like we have very little care for people.
Yeah,
it's like all about it's all about whatever we're designing at that moment.
Yeah,
and seeing like there's an actual connection to a human.
Yeah, and we have this argument because I'm in construction, so like not everything designed is gonna work, you know?
Right.
Yeah, so we're very disconnected from that. We are very like hard numbers and trying to hit like certain requirements. And it's interesting seeing that perspective and that there's different things or different like working in the lab or working with a person and having to like try out each one.
Right.
How long like do you give each experience or each like work experience? Because I know like same thing in our field kind of is you try out this like certain branch and then you say, yeah, it's okay. And then you go to another branch like what's the thing that makes you click? That was like, oh, okay, I think I'm done here and I want to try something else.
I would say like a year experience, really, because I feel like in the first few months you're still so nervous about going to work because you're still learning. So there's so much to learn, and that's how it was with me at the lab and even at the clinic. You know, it took me like 7 months to really understand what I was doing, and I'm still learning. But now it's like I know that we have to see like 30 patients max a day, and it's consistent. That's been consistent. I got hired, and just seeing how little time they get, and and I think that made me feel like, you know what, I don't want to be that doctor who cuts off patients, who leaves the room because they have to go see another patient without telling them. And I've seen this a lot, and I was like, okay, I don't think I want to do this. And it took me the same amount at the lab too. It took me like a year to really understand what I was doing. And after that, I could just do it on my own. You know, I didn't need guidance as much, and I liked it. And I was there for 3 years, and I really enjoyed it. And then here at the clinic, I'm like, you know what? I think it's time. And that's why I applied to that program, the CLS program. And now I'm just waiting to hear back from them if I got in or not. But I mean, it takes about a year. But it's nice working at different places because you get to interact with so many different personalities, your coworkers, and it just helps you be a better person, just seeing what people are like, you know. So I'm grateful for that too, because I feel like I talk to my husband about this sometimes. I'm like, this person is really stressing me out. This person is pissing me off. Well, how do I deal with that? And I'm learning to deal with it now. I'm learning to talk to doctors now. And even if they're upset with me, I'm able to communicate, I'm sorry, I did something wrong. And I was telling Andy and my husband, I was like, what if I was in this situation in med school and it would just break me because I've never dealt with people like that. But now I'm dealing with people. Now I know how to handle it. I know how to deal with it. So I'm it's preparing me for the future, and I'm really grateful for that.
Yeah, I feel like interpersonal skills are not taught in school. Those you learn on the job and like internships and, like just working with so many different kinds of like personalities. Over time, you learn to not take that personal because, I try to keep work at work, but sometimes it's very hard that like it gets to me. So I understand you. Like I come home frustrated and I just ball out.
Right. Yeah.
You've seen that. And he's seen that because like I started a new job. So like it's a lot more stressful than my previous job. But if you keep taking all this personal, it's just gonna like eat you up, you know?
Right.
So it's definitely a learning process, I think, like building thick skin, So that's something.
Yeah, and I would agree. There's like so much that we learn outside of school that like, and it's not even that it's like related to what we're studying. It's just that personal skills and interacting with people is it's like probably the most challenging part.
Right.
Because in the end of the day, like you're working with that person, so there has to be some type of relationship.
For 8 hours or plus. 8 hours plus.
Yeah. So there has to be something there, right? So yeah, that's something that I guess you learn that by working with students, other students, but in the end of the day, you can just go to another group, right?
Yeah.
Here, there's no other group.
Yeah.
And
either you stick there or you quit.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it's important to try something else. Explore. There's a lot to do. There's a lot to learn. If you don't like something, move on. Don't stick there.
Yeah. That's one thing that.
Yeah. Did you ever have that pressure where you felt like you couldn't move on? Or did you always feel like?
I guess I did, because I have a son, and I felt like, well, what if I have to travel to work? Because I was applying out of Santa Maria, and I felt like, no, maybe I can't do that because I have a son. I have to take care of him. Because at the lab when I was working there, I was working from 1:30 to 10. So when I was applying, 10 p.m. Yeah. So it was a night shift. And then, so that worked out fine because my husband was taking online classes. He was at home with the baby. But then I was going to take on a regular 8 to 5, 8 to 4 p.m. schedule. And I felt like I couldn't do it. I was like, no, I can't, because, I have my son who's going to watch him there. We're going to need daycare. And daycare is a whole different story. It's super expensive. Anyway, I felt like I couldn't do it. But I applied. I got an acceptance. They wanted me to work there, and we just had to make it work. And we just made it work. And that's what really happens. It's like, just do it, because everything's going to work out fine. You guys are going to make it work. And I know it sounds stressful. You guys are going to have to pay daycare. But we made it work. I think that was the only thing. Having a child makes it so much harder, because now you have to think about their schedule. It's like, how is that going to conflict my schedule? And my husband is a full-time student. So, but we made it work. So that was the only thing. Having a child makes things a little bit harder, but you can still do it.
Oh, yeah. Man. I've told you this already, but props to you, Yilda.
You.
Like, being a mom, a full-time mom, a full-time student, and having a full-time job, that I don't know how you do it, girl. Oh man, you should feel proud of yourself though. That's freaking amazing. Thank you. I was telling Sam, I was like, I don't know how she does it. I could barely do it on my own, like and we only have a dog.
Oh, I feel like you just make it work. It doesn't matter what comes at you. I feel like we are so resilient. Yes. We just make it work. Whatever comes at you, you just push through it. And I think that's how it's been my entire life, even with school. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I do have another question. How do you, when you realize that your job is not challenging, I can't pronounce that word, challenging you enough, do you just settle for that, or have you just settled for that, or do you request for more challenging opportunities? Or
at my lab, at the lab where I was working, after a year, I was like, you know what, I can do this without anyone telling me what to do. It's a routine now. I did ask for more, so I started helping out the CLS that works there. So we're doing more like a flow. I was working at the flow cytometer department.
What is that?
Flow cytometer it's pretty much a machine where you can run bone marrow samples, blood samples, and just see what kind of white blood cells are present in the person's body, and which cell is why do they have so much of that cell, and from there you can diagnose the patient based on that. Maybe the body's making too much of this cell or of that cell. So that's when the pathologist comes in. It's like, oh, they have leukemia. They have hairy cell leukemia or something like that. So I was doing more of the lab work where we got the bone marrow, the blood sample, and I would run it through the machine. And then the machine spits out some data. And then the CLS, she's able to organize it on a spreadsheet, and she provides the information, all the data to the pathologist. And from there, the pathologist makes the diagnosis. So I did something else. I was working in pathology before. It was just like cutting little pieces of skin to figure out what kind of cancer the patient has. And then I moved on to doing blood work, working with the CLS closer. And that's what also like made me think, you know what, I probably want to do this. It's cool. So I did ask for more. I was like, okay, I think I can do this now. It's routine now. I want to do something else. And they gave it to me. So, and I was so nervous at first. I feel like with everything, when you start it, you get so nervous, like, I can't do it. But then once you start doing it, it's like, wow, this is so cool. I'm doing this, So I think just ask. If you think you're bored with something, just ask for more, and they'll help you out. And from that, just doing that, I got a good letter of rec for my CLS program, because I worked directly with one and I helped her out. So yeah.
So that was because you took the initiative to ask, right?
Yep.
Do you feel like that's something that's also something we don't really talk about or learn, is like, we just think work's going to come our way.
Yeah.
But really, I think like the fastest way to progress your career, to progress your learning, is just to ask.
Yep.
And just, ask for more work, or ask for help if you need the help at times.
Oh, yeah.
Because if you don't ask for help, then you're in like situations where you're struggling when people are there to help you.
Right.
So I think having that voice and asking and talking to whoever it is, work or at school, is something that we have to just, even if we're prideful, just of put that to the side and either ask for more work or just ask for help.
Yeah. I've done that with school. I remember at first as a freshman, I was like, why do they keep asking questions? I thought I was judging people for asking questions. I was like, why are they asking questions? Do they not get it? I don't get it either, but you don't have to ask questions. This is me as a freshman. And, now, as I started to progress in college, I was like, you know what? You need to ask questions to it's okay if you don't get it. Just ask questions. They'll help you out. But I was like that. I was so ignorant. I was like, don't ask questions. That's such a waste of time. But you need to. In school, even at your job, even if you feel dumb for asking it. That's how I used to feel, especially working at the clinic, because we have to go in with the doctors and take physical exams. So you have to type everything the doctor says. And I was so hesitant to ask the doctor to repeat it. And I was like, I just didn't want to do it. But I was like, this is messing up the patient's chart. I just need to ask. And then I would just ask him to say it again, even if he had to repeat it 3 times. Can you say that again? Again, please. And that's okay. It's okay to ask questions, and that makes you better. Just admitting that you need help. Everyone needs help. You just have to ask and don't feel ashamed for doing it, because that's how I would feel. It's like, oh, he probably thinks I'm really slow or something. But just ask.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that a lot of people struggle with at the beginning of a new job. And I can also agree to that like for me, it was hard at first, but I was like, you know what? If I want to be a good like engineer or like project manager eventually, I need to learn to ask questions. Yeah. I need to ask questions, even if they sound silly. Like, how are you going to learn if you don't ask? And like, if you don't do it the right way, it's just going to carry on. And, so definitely asking questions, learning how to ask for help when it needed is something that everyone should learn to do.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah. But, I'm just waiting on that program now. And then if I get in, it's going to be so great.
What would be the next step to that?
If I get in, it's a whole year program. So I do my clinicals at Marion. And then I take classes, online classes, because it's through the San Jose State University. And so it would be online classes and then working 32 hours at Marion. But they give you a stipend, I believe. So that will cover some food expenses. And then after that, I hopefully get hired by Marion. And then I just work with the pathologist, and then start exploring that field more.
Yeah.
And see if I like that, move on with pathology.
And is that what you would apply for in medical school?
Yes. Oh, so I would go into med school for pathology. And yeah, who knows what will happen. But I was also telling Annie, I'm just going to explore also the CLS, see how it is. I might end up wanting to do research. I don't know. I might like the cells, so much specific kind of cells, that I might want to explore it more and do maybe a master's or PhD or something.
That's amazing.
So I'm just exploring my options, and I think it's great that I have this opportunity to do it. A lot of people don't have it, and I'm just grateful that I do.
Yeah, that's awesome. Do you have any other questions?
No, I think as we wrap this up, I think the final thing that we'd like to ask is like any advice that you would have for someone either out of high school or just trying to figure out what they want to do. What would you say like your biggest advice was?
It would be to ask questions, really. Just go to anyone. It doesn't matter who you go to. Just ask maybe some professors, some teachers, ask them what they do, what they're doing. And if they have like, I believe when we were in high school, they had the fairs, the college fairs. Go to those and ask the reps there, what's their major? What do they do? What and just really go to everyone and ask them what they do. And if you have questions, ask them, especially because they're in college. They the classes they're taking. And, also just ask your professors for help when you're studying. If you don't know how to study for a certain thing, just ask them, what can help me get a better grade in here? What should I do? And go to office hours. Oh my gosh, that was a big thing when I was in college. So my first 2 years, I didn't do it. But after that, I would go to office hours, sit with the professor, talk to them, help you understand it. Just ask for help. There's a lot of people there who will help you out, and a few who would be like, oh, you know what, this is a waste of time. I don't want to do it. But just ignore those people. You just keep going. You keep asking. You have to do it for yourself. Otherwise, no one else is going to do it for you. You have to go out and get it yourself. Especially if you're first generation, you don't have anyone else helping you out there. Reach out to us, to me, to Esther, Ricardo.
Yes, I'll provide your information.
Yeah.
And, definitely the purpose of this podcast, as I mentioned, we want to promote higher education and offer those resources that some of us didn't have, like, in the process of high school through college.
Oh, yeah.
We want to be able to give back to our community that like lacks all these things, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, no, you're fine.
I guess one last question I have is, what is something that you wish you would have known before going into college?
Mm-hmm. The biggest one, I think, I don't know if there's a lot of people out there, but when I went to college, I knew I wanted to go to med school, but nobody told me that you don't have to major in a biology. You don't have to have a biology major, anything in biochemistry. You can go into med school with a history degree, English degree. You just need to meet some of the course requirements that involve some biology classes, but it's not that much. So if someone would have told me that, I think my GPA for my undergrad would have been so much better. And I could have applied right after, to go to med school. But I didn't know that we didn't have to have a science major to go into med school. And a lot of my peers, first gen peers, who want to go to med school, who wanted to go to med school back when we were in undergrad, that was the same issue with them. They wish they knew that they didn't have to major in biology.
Oh man.
Yeah, that's a big thing. We didn't know about that until we were like a fourth year. We're like, oh.
No way.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah. It was crazy. We're like, and I remember talking to a close friend of mine. He was like, I wish someone told us that. I wish someone told us that you don't have to do a biology major to go into med school. You can do it with a history major.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's like a big misconception about like going into medical school. I think I feel like I even thought like you had to get some sort of degree in biology or
Yeah, and I actually heard of that not too long ago too. I always thought it was that way too, but I think it's the misconception because a lot of the coursework aligns with a biology major, so you don't have to take classes outside of your it's just there. But no, it would make total sense because it's a lot of stuff to take on as a freshman.
Right. Yeah. So that would be one thing.
Well, thank you, Yilda.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me. I really like this. So if anyone has any questions, I'll give Esther my email and you guys can shoot me an email. We're here for you guys.
Yes. Like Yilda said, we are here to help our, younger generations and promote higher education and offer those resources. And Yilda, I will get your information, and if you don't mind, I'll share it. And we really appreciate you taking the time to join us on our podcast and, just share your inspiring story. And we really hope that those listening out there got a good motivation out of this, because Yilda's story is very inspiring. I know her from high school, and we played soccer together. So it's a lot of, I feel a lot of, is it pride? Yes, pride. That I get to, see somebody that I went to high school with, pursue something higher than high school, and, that's making it. So thank you, Yilda, for joining us. Thank you, everyone. And we will see you next time.